Again, good morning and welcome to our June session of Sacred Silence, co-sponsored by the Interfaith Center and the Arkansas House of Prayer. The Arkansas House of Prayer is an interfaith haven set apart in nature, dedicated to contemplative prayer, meditation, and quiet, where all are welcome. Created in 2011, the Interfaith Center's mission is to reduce the hatred and fear among the world's religions by providing education, promoting dialogue, and providing relationship building opportunities among people of different faiths. I am Sister Deborah Troillett, a Sister of Mercy, currently serving as the Executive Director for the Arkansas House of Prayer. For this session, I will serve both as presenter and facilitator this morning. The Arkansas House of Prayer is very grateful to be working with the Interfaith Center to co-sponsor this program. Many of you know Sophia Said, the Executive Director of the Interfaith Center, as she has been one of our Sacred Silence teachers for the months of January through May. And while we are giving her a little break from teaching, we're deeply grateful for her willingness to serve today by generously providing the Zoom assistance that we need for this morning. Our Sacred Silence sessions are held every second Tuesday of the month. As your presenters for the months of June through September, the Reverend Susan Sims Smith and I have slightly modified the flow of our time together for these next 4 sessions. For each of these sessions, rather than having the blessing of 3 teachers during one session, as we did from January to May, we will have one teacher, either me or Susan, offering a perspective on a theme. We will continue to be faithful to our 1-hour format, and within that format, our 15 minutes of shared silence. And we hope by October, we may be able to resume our 3-teacher perspective format. And so following these introductory remarks, we will have 20 minutes of teaching on today's theme, which is silence and resilience. Right after this teaching, I will briefly introduce a simple meditation method that could be used today. And then I will invite us all to enter into 15 minutes of shared silence. At the end of that time, I will bring us out of the silence and facilitate another 15 minutes for open discussion, which could include question and answer. We will close and end by 8:30 Central Daylight Savings Time, and I'll have a very brief closing. All our sessions are recorded for the benefit of those who are not able to join us today. They are available on the Interfaith Center's YouTube channel for future viewing. So I request that you keep your microphones muted just for the teaching segment. But if, again, you have a burning question or comment during the teaching time, you can always go to the chat and place your comment or question there, and we can respond to it during the question answer segment. Also, it is an important reminder that since the sessions are recorded, if you do not wish to be seen during the meditation time, or really for any time during our session, you're always welcome to switch your camera off or keep your camera off. I would like to begin by saying that I have been thinking about this theme for a few weeks, and I thought last week that I knew what I wanted to share. Then on Friday, I learned that a friend that I have known for over 30 years died of cancer. I had spoken to her about a month ago when I learned that she had decided not to undergo any more treatment. When we spoke, she basically said it was time to say goodbye. But before then, she asked, as she always did, how I was and how my 94-year-old mother, for whom I care, how she was doing. She fought a valiant fight for the last 15 years. And during that time, the only way I would even know or be reminded of her condition was when she would simply ask for prayers as she was going in for her scans. Silence and resilience. In reflecting on her life and her valiance, I asked myself, what do I know about this quality called resilience? Perhaps, to be honest, given her circumstances, I can only recognize resilience more than speak from experience. She was resilient, and she lived her life fully and well out of something else I do know about her. Her deep connection to her family, her faith, her community. And so I begin in awe of her resilience, her persistent choice of life against all odds, and how she demonstrates what the poet Gwendolyn Brooke once wrote, whenever life can grow, it will. It will sprout out and do the best it can. I have not faced this kind of health challenge, but perhaps there are those among us this morning who have and who are facing this challenge. I certainly cannot speak to what it takes to deal daily with such a serious and ongoing health issue, but I do know this woman as a woman of faith, of prayer, whose relationship with the divine was a top priority in her life. Her resilience came from a deeper connection. It is a mystery in which I stand in awe and reverence. And so I want to begin by recognizing that there is a mystery to resilience, a mystery as deep as the mystery of life itself. Another poet, Jane Hirshfield, writes of resilience in this way: more and more, I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree, finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence? True. But out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all this resinous, unretractable earth. More and more, I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree, finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence? True. But out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all this resonance, unretractable earth. This morning, I will speak to the theme of silence and resilience from two perspectives. I will share a few things that psychologists tell us about resilience, and I will share some of my experience of returning to silence again and again, sometimes experiencing the divine light, at other times seeming to be my own biggest block to receiving such light, because I come with a mind so full of interior noise. I sense the interrelationships of a persistent practice of silence, a deepening relationship with the divine, and how these help build resilient hearts. I hope during the open discussion, you will feel free to share how you might see and experience their interrelationship. Also, a reminder that just before we begin the shared silence together, I will introduce a very simple method of meditation that I have found helpful. It invites us to focus on the vibratory energy and resiliency of our own hearts, our own spiritual heart center. In a book called Silence, the Mystery of Wholeness, Robert Sardello says that drawing attention to the heart as both a physical organ and a spiritual center focuses the mystery of silence that we will be entering. The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, workplace and financial stressors, or other experiences of adversity, trauma, tragedy, or threat. According to psychologists, as much as resilience involves bouncing back from these difficult experiences, it can also result in a new level of personal growth. In another book called The Power of Silence, Richard Cardinal Sarah talks about how difficult problems trouble our silence. He asks, for example, how can we ask a mother whose child is seriously ill to hold at bay all the painful thoughts that continually assail her? Or how can we ask a person who has just lost a spouse, carried off by a long illness, to set aside this veil of sadness that is breaking his or her heart so as to rediscover a certain quality of silence? Yet he insists that even if life is as difficult as it can be, God nevertheless remains present within each one of us. God is patient, faithful, merciful, and waits untiringly. He says the most difficult thing probably is to come to our senses, to wake up to be quiet, to turn toward the divine indwelling, which is our spiritual heart center. He sums up the spiritual journey as the rediscovery of our silent interior life in which God dwells and waits for us. In my experience of silence and resilience, I would add that the bouncing back described by psychologists can perhaps be more like bouncing beyond. The practice of silence fosters a resilience that is not just about returning to some prior steady state, or either emotionally or physically, but actually fosters our return to and our saying yes to the ongoing dynamic and transformative divine presence within. We are not the same following the deepening encounter with the divine. According to Sarah, it can result in a deepening discovery and reliance upon this presence within. Through silence, we turn toward the divine indwelling. We return. As we return again and again, we can build resilience because our hearts can become more buoyant through this communion with the source of all life, love, joy, healing, energy, and power. I find entering daily silence restorative, refreshing at times. And yes, at times very difficult, because in the silence I am invited also to face what I would rather not admit is there, what Jesus in the Christian scriptures calls the impure thoughts that defile a person from the inside. These thoughts, though I would rather they not be there, I find them. They rise in my heart and mind. And at that moment, I am reminded to trust even more and to simply allow them to rise, not to over-identify with them as me, but allowing and accepting that they need to be unloaded so the unconscious can be healed without my resistance or my judgment. In silence, we can return to who we really are in God and grow beyond where we were to become more fully the unique and unrepeatable person God created us to be. In the process, we experience a new degree of awareness, confidence, and trust in the relationship to our true self and to the divine image in whose image and likeness we are made. Psychologists are quick to note that resilience does not protect persons from experiencing distress. One can become more resilient only in the experience of difficulties. Kind of like the time I realized being courageous does not mean having no fear. Courage becomes courage only because you are afraid. And so the road to building resilience is more like a positive side effect of faithfulness to the spiritual journey and the practice of silence. Psychological research tells us that the ability to develop resilience is ordinary, not extraordinary. It involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that anyone can learn. All we must do, especially in recent weeks and months, is recall our current experience of the pandemic and the daily stories of folks experiencing so much tragic loss and yet demonstrating so many heroic responses of beginning again and rebuilding their lives. The pandemic has revealed many things, and it has clearly revealed the human capacity for resilience. So we take encouragement from the psychological sphere. We are assured that increasing our resilience is available to all of us. And like building a muscle, it takes time, intentionality, and focus. And the good news for any of us who practice silence is we know that already. Entering silence, practicing silence, takes time, intentionality, and focus. Psychologists also speak of 4 components or building blocks for resilience: connection, wellness, healthy thinking, and finding meaning. They tell us these components can empower us to withstand and learn from difficult and traumatic experiences. And within these 4 components, 7 strategies are recommended that help us grow and weather these experiences. Number 1 is prioritize your relationships. Join a group, become active in civic groups or faith-based groups or other local organizations that can provide both social support and can help us reclaim our hope. Take care of our body. Self-care is a pretty popular buzzword these days, but it's also a legitimate practice for both our mental health and building resilience, since stress is just as much physical as it is emotional. In addition, positive lifestyle factors that we've all heard: proper nutrition, ample sleep, hydration, regular exercise. All these can strengthen our bodies to adapt to stress and reduce the toll that anxiety and depression can take. Number 3 is to practice mindfulness. Mindful mindful journaling, yoga, other spiritual practices like meditation, like silence, can also help build connections and restore hope. And then that in itself primes us to deal with situations that require resilience. They suggest that when you journal, meditate, or pray, ruminate on the positive aspects of our lives and recall the things we're grateful for, even during personal trials. My only footnote to this would be a reminder that in the silence practice, we do not intentionally focus on any thinking, either positive or negative. We may notice them rise, and we also, again, are invited, whether they're positive or negative, to simply let them go. Number 4, according to psychologists, is to find purpose. They suggest helping others when you volunteer or offer your service, or simply support a friend in need. You can garner, again, a sense of purpose, foster self-worth, connect with others, and help others, all of which empower you to grow in resilience. And it's true, absolutely true, that helping another person feels so empowering to us. But in addition, I would also add that it's also empowering not to have to judge how effective or not we may have been in our effort to help someone. Sometimes it's not for us to know how or if we've been helpful, and that's okay as well. Number 5 is to embrace healthy thoughts, keep things in perspective. How you think can play a significant part in how you feel and how resilient you are when you are faced with obstacles. They suggest try to identify areas of irrational thinking, such as catastrophizing difficulties or assuming the whole world is out to get you, and adopt a more balanced and realistic thinking pattern. In my own silence practice, I have come to appreciate categories of these kinds of distorted thoughts. They usually come in response to some upsetting event or anticipating one. And I have found them wonderfully described in a book called Feeling Good. It's kind of a classic by Dr. David Burns. He includes things like all or nothing, black and white thinking, overgeneralizations. This always happens to me. A mental filter that either only dwells on the negatives or discounts the positive, like, yeah, I guess I did okay, but it wasn't good enough. Jumping to conclusions, mind reading, I knew that was going to happen, I just knew it. Fortune telling, magnification, blowing things out of proportion, or maybe making light of something that we should not minimize. And then the classics should statements. I should. Labeling yourself, others, and then, of course, blaming, either blaming yourself or blaming other people for everything. In my silence practice, while certain thoughts may rise during the practice, I find that it's outside the practice that I have become more able to notice these distorted kinds of thoughts as they arise. Number 6, accept change. Accept that change is part of life. Certain goals or ideas may no longer be attainable because of these adverse situations in our life. Accepting circumstances that cannot be changed can help us for circumstances that we can change. In silence practice, we learn to surrender again and again to what we cannot control, to whatever comes up. Such a brilliant gift from 12-step spirituality. And then finally, they suggest to maintain a hopeful outlook by visualizing what you want rather than worrying about what you fear, and that along the way, you could actually make note of any subtle ways that you start to feel better when you deal with difficult situations. We can learn from our past, we can look back at who or what was helpful in previous times, and we can discover how to respond. Silence and hope. That will be the theme of our August Sacred Silence. So more on that later. So in summary of all of what the psychologists tell us about nurturing resilience, I would say it's all good advice, and it's all based in research. And what I have found is that the practice of silence, however, is the spiritual ground that surrounds, supports, and keeps me connected with my core identity in God. And it is that connection that serves as a powerhouse that resources my efforts in all 7 of these 7 building resistance strategies. So rather than think of 7 strategies as kind of a playbook, I find that silence provides something more organically whole, more integrated. It's like entering a sacred field of energy, a presence that helps heal and integrate mind, body, spirit, soul. Robert Sardello writes, and I quote, "Silence bears the wholeness we keep looking for, while we do not know exactly what we're looking for. It is around us and within us. It goes to the deepest depths of the soul and to the outermost reaches of the cosmos, and continually unites the two at the centering place of our heart." So a lot of words. And at this point, I would sum up what I would suggest might be the one takeaway from all of this. It is like something Sophia pointed out to us in one of the earlier sessions when she said that the words silent and listen are comprised of the same letters, and thus pointed to the integral connection between listening and silence. Similarly, if you just look within the word resilience, you will find the word silence. In addition, you will find the prefix RE, which means back again, renew, and serves as an intensification of the base word, to re-silence. And the addition of the letter I want to suggest that this additional I could stand for you or me or anyone who commits to the practice, thus transforming the re-silencing process into resilience. In other words, the key to resilience is committing to re-silence, to intensify the base of silence. Re-silence becomes resilience when we add in the I, that is you or me. When I make a personal commitment to daily enter silence, I am re-silencing. I am intending to sit in the presence of the divine and return and return and return again to the awareness of this presence, no matter what I think is happening or not happening. I show up, and in this practice, we build an inner reservoir of sacred silence, spacious silence. Intention is everything, and it is the intention in this practice which I found can free up the best of who we are at our core, strengthen our capacity for an expansive, supple, buoyant heart one that can be described as resilient because it is relational, connected, selfless, and therefore truly available, not only to myself and my own bodily needs, but to others, to the divine. I find myself more aware of thoughts arising out of the silence, especially the distorted ones, and therefore a bit freer to choose my desired response rather than react to the kinds of thoughts that keep feeding the emotional turmoil inside my head and therefore my heart. This attunement to my own thought patterns helps me choose, helps me surrender and accept the change that comes with life and allow more of the divine life that is within me, such as joy, peace, and hope, to manifest. These gifts or traits are our birthright, as we have all been created in the image and likeness of the divine who indwells there in this sacred temple of our own hearts. Ultimately, it is the divine who is resilient within us. What I'd like to offer now is a very simple spiritual heart center meditation practice. Once I describe the practice, I would then invite us into the sacred silence for 15 minutes. According to Robert Sardello, the heart is both a physical organ and a spiritual imaginative center, and he calls it the only true organ for perceiving silence. So, in this practice, we do what we generally do. We sit comfortably, feet on the floor, head, neck, spine aligned. We close our eyes, we're comfortable with that, and rest our hands gently on our lap. We slowly inhale, and even more slowly exhale, relaxing the entire body. Then we continue to breathe normally. We consciously become aware of our spiritual heart center, the center of our chest. In the practice, if thoughts, sensations rise, do not dialogue, converse, engage, or respond to their rising. Allow them to rise and again simply return to the awareness of your spiritual heart center. If you find it difficult to become aware of your heart center, simply place your hand upon the area of your chest where the spiritual heart center is found. You might call it a hand to heart meditation. As a prelude to entering this silence, I would like to use kind of a mantra, a song. It's only about 2 minutes in length, and it's called Return Again. As the song concludes, sacred silence begins for 15 minutes. At the end of the 15 minutes, I will simply speak a prayer phrase to signal the end of the meditation. So let us settle briefly, close our eyes, rest our hands gently, slowly inhale and exhale. Breathe normally. Become aware of your spiritual heart center. If thoughts or sensations rise, do not dialogue, converse, or engage. Simply allow them to rise and again return to awareness of your sacred heart center. And if you find that difficult to become aware, simply place your hand in the area of your spiritual heart center. So Sophia, would you now please play the song, Return Again?
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
Be eating fried avocado tacos. Thank you.
Glory to you, source of life, living word, and divine spirit. Amen. We really don't have 15 minutes for Q&A or discussion, but we have a good 5 minutes. So I just want to open the opportunity for any sharing, any reflection, any offering for the group. Thank you. So I think if I just put you on gallery view, I can see everyone and see who might wish to speak. Catherine, can you unmute yourself or?
I don't have many words, but I'd like to say thank you. It's been lovely.
Thank you. Well, I feel deeply grateful to each of you for joining us this morning. I want to again say thank you on behalf of the Interfaith Center and the Arkansas House of Prayer. Wish to thank Sophia again for her Zoom support this morning. I would remind you that we continue on second Tuesdays. On July 13th, the Reverend Susan Sims Smith will present on the theme of silence and suffering. All of you will also, if you noticed in the chat, there is a link there to a very simple feedback survey. And of course, that would be very helpful to us all as we continue to offer this program. So again, we just take a moment. Again, thank you for the richness of this shared silence together. In our closing, I have a similar mantra that I'll just end with. It's kind of similar to the song, Return Again. It's simply this: begin and begin and begin again. Begin anytime. Begin anywhere. Begin any way. To begin is the thing. Hold tight to your passion. The thing is to begin. Begin anytime. Begin anywhere. Anyhow. Amen.